listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our radio website where you can find out what's going on here in the X-Zone yesterday, today, and tomorrow, www.xzoneradio.com. Now, once again, for all the members of the X-Zone Nation around the world listening to us on the Mutual Broadcast Network, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, on the Talkstar Radio Network, on the IPBN Radio Network, if you go to www.xzonetv.com, you'll be able to watch the 12 episodes of the 2015 segment or series, or I guess, Craig, what do we call it? The first series of the X-Zone TV show. That's at www.xzonetv.com. All the episodes are there with our compliments and the compliments of our many advertisers. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is a lady who is no stranger to the X-Zone, a good friend of the X-Zone. Roberta Grimes is her name. And Roberta is a Austin-based business attorney who had two extraordinary experiences of light in childhood that prompted her to spend decades studying nearly 200 years of abundant and consistent communications from the dead. Now, using this material, the principles of quantum mechanics, and the latest development in consciousness research, eventually she was able to figure out what her experiences of light had been. And beyond that, she learned so many details about what happens at and after death, and how the entire process works, that in 2010 she published The Fun of Dying. Find out what really happens next, which was updated last year. 2014 sequel, The Fun of Staying in Touch. Joining me now is the one and only Roberta Grimes. And Roberta, welcome back to the X Zone. Great having you with us.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Rob. Thank you.
You know, when I tell people that you're coming on the show and you're going to be talking about the fun of dying, I get strange looks.
I know.
You know, like, I work hard all day. You work hard all day. People around the world work hard all day. You know, and I was always taught to believe that you do what you can here when you're alive, because when you're dead for a long time. But having done this show for 25 years, I have been proved wrong so many times it's not even funny.
Right.
So tell me, what does happen after we die?
Well, it's surprisingly easy to die, and it's really fun to die. That word comes from the dead. It doesn't come from me. Most people have no idea what's really going on. Mm-hmm. And dying is as easy as changing channels on your TV. If you assume your mind is a TV,
okay.
Right now you're tuned to channel maybe 2, and when you die, you just turn your TV's little dial to channel 5, and you pick up a whole new solid reality in the same place. It's that simple. Because your mind is eternal and your mind is part, really, of the infinitely powerful mind of God, you can do just about anything once you get where you're going. It's so easy.
So, Roberta, would we be correct in saying that the mind is the soul?
I don't know that there's a distinction. I think that's a very good point, Rob. I have seen people say, oh, this is a mind, this is a soul, this is the spirit. There are 3 things people think they can find. But all I've been able to find is that we have a mind. Our mind is part of one gigantic mind, which is the only thing that exists. All our minds are part of that mind. And it doesn't seem to get broken out. It just seems to be who we are, and we go on forever. What happens when we come here is that we have a lessened sort of part of that mind. It's as if we leave most of our mind in a suitcase in the afterlife levels when we come here for a brief lifetime. And then we regain it when we go back. And so we suddenly know a lot more and remember a lot more. But we're not, just as there's no Trinity, God is not all divided up, so are we not all divided up.
So do we stay us throughout eternity?
Apparently, yes. I think that's one of the things we fret about ourselves probably more than anything. It's our awareness that we don't ever want to lose.
Roberta?
This bothered me a lot, so I've done a lot of research.
All right, Roberta, please stand by. We've got to take our break. X-Zone Nation, Roberta Grimes and I return on the other side of this break. www.robertagrimes.com. Don't go away.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Welcome back, everyone. Roberta Grimes is our very special guest this hour, www.robertagrimes.com. Now, Roberta, where does reincarnation come in play? Does it come in play, or once we're gone, we're gone?
We're eternal. We never began, we never will end. And we're here to grow spiritually. Most people don't know that that's the meaning and purpose of life, but it is. In fact, Jesus tells us that right in the Gospels, and the dead tell us that today. So in order for us to grow, just like if you want to sort of get all fit, physically fit, you've got to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Well, we come to our lives on earth sort of like going to a spiritual gym. And all those things that we think mean that the horrible things that happen that we think mean God could not possibly love us, those are just the machines we chose to use in that spiritual gym to grow ourselves spiritually, including death of a child, horrible illnesses, whatever they are. None of this is real. We go home again after each lifetime to our real lives, which are in what we used to think of as the afterlife.
If we go home, and there are other people who have come down here and learned the lesson, why don't we just get taught by those who have come here, gone back home, and sit in a classroom somewhere and have these learned spirits tell us what we need to know, instead of each one of us having to come down here and go through the trials and tribulations?
Just for the same reason that somebody can't tell you what it's like in a gym and have you get strong.
True.
It turns out that we really are here to grow spiritually. That's really what it's all about. And all of the third book in this series, as you point out, there are 2 books in the Fun series. The third one is The Fun of Growing Forever. It'll be out this summer. And it details what the dead tell us is the reason why we're here. It's very consistent. And it also details the amazing fact that the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels, which all Christians that I've ever met ignore pretty much, are actually a system where it's the most efficient system that exists for growing spiritually at a rapid rate, just following those teachings. Isn't that amazing? It's true.
It is. Isn't that contrary to what they're supposed to do as Christians?
Wait, ignore Jesus?
Yeah.
They shouldn't be ignoring Jesus. That's right.
Exactly.
But they do. They have it's strange, but Christianity, and I have to say I've been the most devout Christian all my life. It was troubling when I figured all this out, but it's just incontrovertible. This is what the dead tell us is true. And I can't get Christians to understand that it's not so easy to be a Christian. We're supposed to actually become perfect, as Jesus says. We're supposed to follow the teachings, and it's not hard. It's actually easy and fun, and it makes you happy.
As you and I have said many times, life is simple. We complicate it.
That's right. Yes.
So what messages have you received from the dead that have given you the inspiration, the desire to share this message with everyone?
Well, I spent decades studying nearly 200 years of abundant and consistent communications from dead people, most received in the early part of the 20th century. Most people are not even aware these exist. And that's where it began. But I have since, through a very good medium named Suzanne Wilson, I recommend her highly, I have come to have a much more sort of intimate relationship with my own spirit guides, who have told me a lot about what we're doing, what's going on, why the consciousness of the earth must be raised, and the part that Jesus is to play in it. It's been an exciting 15 months or so, Rob. I've really learned so much.
What was your most awe-inspiring moment?
My most awe-inspiring moment of my life?
Well, when it comes to these messages from the other side.
That's easy. That's easy. After I had done all that research and I realized that nothing that I had believed as a Christian was true, I finally got up the nerve to again sit down with my Gospels, and I discovered that Jesus, 2,000 years ago, told us things about God, reality, death, the afterlife, and the meaning of our lives that we could not have confirmed until the 20th century. So I can prove to you that Jesus is real. He couldn't have said the things he said if he were not genuinely God on earth. It's the most amazing thing you can imagine to suddenly discover that.
Why do we fear death so much when we should accept it with open arms?
Yes. I don't fear it at all. I look forward to it. But people have been taught by Christianity that they're going to be judged, and if they guess wrong, if they're Baptist when they should have been Catholic, they're going to hell. I mean, that's scary. And people have been taught by science that when they just blink out like a light, that's scary. Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, what it sets you free from is fear. When you really know what's going on at death, you don't fear it at all.
Why has this information been kept from us then, Roberta?
There are various reasons, but primarily because people have a very good shtick going. I mean, the Christian leaders need to have us fearful in order to make sure we end up going back to the pews each Sunday. And the scientific leaders are actually, believe it or not, terrified of inadvertently finding God. This has been going on for more than a century. They've established the scientific dogma of atheism, actually materialism, as what you have to espouse if you're going to be a practicing scientist, believe it or not.
Why would they be afraid to find God if so many people on this planet, in one form or another, accept his existence and follow the teaching of not only his son, but his prophets?
Well, for scientists, the problem is that there's a very ancient battle that's gone on. It goes back to Plato and Aristotle and maybe before, which is between a spiritual way of looking at the world and a physical or material way of looking at the world. And it's been a literal battle, an intellectual battle. Finally, as I say, in the early part of the 20th century, it was codified. You can find the words fundamental dogma of science and find that it's materialism. You could find those words in print 100 years ago, believe it or not.
Exonation, my guest this hour is Roberta Grimes, and her website is www.robertagrimes.com. where is the afterlife, and how do we get there, Roberta? Like, we die, and do we have a built-in homing device? Do we know where we're going once we die?
That's a good question, and the answer is no.
Oh.
We are about as clueless at death as we were when we entered this world.
Oh, boy.
And therefore we have to be rescued, and we all get rescued. But where it is, it's exactly where we are. It's in exactly the same place. There is no such thing as distance or time or space in any part of reality except this material universe, which we now know is less than 5% of what exists. Scientists even know that. They just don't know what it means. So it's right here. And that's why it's as if your mind were a TV set. Right now you're tuned to that body on this channel, the Earth channel, and you'll tune to the Summerland channel when your body dies, and you'll pick up a whole new reality and a beautiful new body there. It's that easy.
Okay, so is there any part of a natural death that is painful or frightening?
Getting to it isn't great. As people with cancer have said to me, how could you call your book The Fun of Dying? It's not fun. When you're within a few hours or a few days of death, pain generally goes away, and from then on it's wonderful. It's fun. It's wonderful fun. It's beyond anything people can imagine in terms of fun. Leaving your body is physically pleasurable. I have seen it described as an orgasmic feeling to leave your body, which, think about it. I mean, you're imprisoned in a boat anchor, that old dying body, and suddenly you're free and light as a feather, and you feel young and you feel powerful. Of course that feels good.
Can we control our rate of death? Should we control our rate of death?
I don't think we can. It's being managed by our guides, and it's being managed by our own higher consciousness. So the awareness that you have, it generally is not. Well, I say that, but then I also say people usually prefer to die without others in the room, and sometimes they'll hold on for quite a long time until you go off and get yourself something to eat, and they'll die while you're gone.
Right.
Let people do that. I mean, it's sort of a very private experience to actually leave your body, and people like to do that alone.
I would imagine that there are many times that a person holds on to life even though they want to let it go for those who are grieving around them.
That's a problem. You're right. You're right. But all of these things, all these sort of painful facts come from the fact that our civilization, our society is so clueless about what happens at death and so unnecessarily afraid of it. It's nothing to fear. It's the best time of your life.
Well, obviously, the Irish understand this better than any community because,
right.
They have a blast. They celebrate the person's life.
Yes.
And do you know what the difference between an Irish wedding and an Irish wake is?
What?
One less person.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense because even the soldiers going back to medieval times would not be afraid to lend someone else money because they know that they'd meet up in the afterlife.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Eh?
Well, it really is going to change everything when everybody knows that their lives are eternal. You can't die. It's impossible for your mind to die. You will always be aware. And when people really get that, boy, does it change everything in their lives.
Well, doesn't that mean that a lot of other things that we've been told about this life of ours are nothing else but lies and misconception as well?
Of course. Of course
Man,
it does.
That's a hard pill to swallow, my dear.
Well, it is, but ignorance, you see, leads to a lot of folly and a lot of, lies is probably strong, well-meant errors in communication, perhaps.
Okay, well, you're a nice lady, so you can get away with that, but I just like calling it as it is. We're still lying to kids each and every day that they go to school and think that, they're taught that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. Wrong.
Actually, it was the Vikings. I'm of Danish descent. I think we discovered the Americas, didn't we?
Yes, followed by the Irish monks who got lost going to Belfast and they ended up in America.
Right, and preceded by the folks who came over the Bering Land Bridge.
Yeah.
So yes, let's just say it's been a thoroughfare for discoverers for many, many centuries.
It has, my dear. Please stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, my guest this hour is Roberta Grimes, and she is one heck of a lady. Visit her website, www.robertagrimes.com. She's written The Fun of Dying, Find Out What Really Happens Next, and in 2014 she wrote a sequel, The Fun of Staying in Touch. And we'll talk to Roberta more about this and much more as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you on the Mutual Broadcast Network, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and the IPBN Radio Network. If you'd like to send me an email, I love getting your emails, but like I've said before, there are times when I think that little, tinfoil hat of yours is a little bit too tight. Sometimes I think that the blood has stopped going. But I still love getting them, and I promise I won't publish them without your authorization. No, I won't. I really won't. Email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is the one and only Roberta Grimes. And nearly 200 years of abundant and consistent afterlife evidence tells us about the death process, exactly what happens and how it feels, and what comes immediately after death. Now, with every non-accidental death, there is a pretty consistent series of events. Not only does knowing the truth about the death process help to alleviate the fear of death and make it a positive and enjoyable experience, but it also helps us to avoid potential problems. At the very least, it would be a good way to help people learn how to avoid becoming earthbound spirits. For more information about our dear friend Roberta Grimes, visit her website at www.robertagrimes.com. All right, I have to ask you this question, Roberta. We've been friends for a while, right?
Yes, we have.
All right. Is there such a place as hell?
No, there isn't. There's no fiery hell. There's an outer darkness. The lowest afterlife level is cold, dark, smelly, and disgusting. And Jesus talked about that.
Dark, smelly, and what?
And disgusting. It's full of demon-like people who've put themselves there. Nobody condemns us to the outer darkness but ourselves.
Do you think
no judgment by a religious figure, certainly no judgment by God or by Jesus. But of course, Jesus tells us these things right in the Gospels, and he's ignored. Everything he said is ignored by Christians. It's so upsetting because it's right. Yeah. We can prove he's right. Why don't they listen to him?
Because it's too easy.
No, actually, it's harder. What's really easy is believing he just came to die for us, because then all we have to do is pretty much nothing. Claim him as our savior when we go right to the top of the elevator. I guess I have no idea what people are thinking, but that's not true.
No, because I've always thought that we should do unto others as we do unto them, and it's a mutual exchange. I believe in the 10 Commandments. I believe that if you follow them, they're very basic, they're very simple. Follow them and you'll lead a good life.
Jesus doesn't believe in the 10 Commandments.
He doesn't?
He came to replace the 10 Commandments with God's law of love. He says that in the Gospels, but again, he's ignored.
Then why do they have the first book where God says, these are my rules and regulations, and they have the second book that is attached to the first book that just confuses the heck out of people? Who do they believe, God or Jesus?
Well, that's really the problem.
Yeah.
The ancient Jews had an understanding which was relatively primitive. Mm-hmm. Jesus came to teach it. He came, number one, I think, to do away with our superstitions and teach us to relate to God directly. That's in the Gospels. But he came to tell us, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. Then he said something important. He said, in that consists the whole law and the prophets. Well, that's what they back then called what we call the Old Testament. He replaced it all with the law of love. And yet Christians will use parts of the Old Testament. They don't follow the whole book. But they'll use parts of it to judge and condemn people, even though Jesus says, judge not that ye be not judged. Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing that they claim Jesus, but they don't listen to Jesus. Why?
Let me ask you this then. Is it possible that in the year 2016 that we don't need religion anymore? That we just need to follow the rules as set out, but we don't have to go with the religious dogma that has been tying us back and keeping us from learning the truth?
We have more than 40,000 denominations of Christianity now, and it's multiplying almost daily. And anything that's that divided, there's something wrong.
Yep.
And when we look at the world that we've made, we have to say, what has the religion as it's been practiced really done in terms of helping us? Yet if we would follow the teachings, if everybody would now follow the teachings of Jesus, or if even 10 or 20% of us would, Jesus tells us we can bring the kingdom of God on earth, no more wars, no more hatred, no more suffering. We can bring that on earth. Jesus says it in the Gospels. Maybe it's time to try it out.
But I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm going to throw in that three-letter word that kind of puts a wrench into most gears, and that's but.
Yes.
A lot of people would lose making a lot of money.
That's the problem.
You know,
it really is all religions are based in fear. And usually the fear of God. And so once this fear of God is instilled, then the religion has a way to kind of keep you in the pews, right? It has a cure for the fear. But the problem is that fear is the opposite of love, and reality is governed by consciousness. And the lowest vibration of consciousness is fear. The problem we have in this world is that we are governed by fear. The highest vibration is love. We can't love God while we fear God. It's not possible. They're at opposite ends of the pole. And so it just stands to reason it's time to get rid of the religions that instill fear and just turn to God with love, which is what Jesus tells us to do.
Is that why we created the devil, so that God would have an opposing force?
I'm not sure why we created the devil. There are a lot of people who have chosen negativity in their lives. So there's a lot of negative energy, and there are negative entities, but they're not organized into a devil. I don't know where it comes from. It's time for us to get rid of superstitions and turn to God in truth.
Maybe we need to rewrite the Bible.
Maybe we need to just cut out most of it and keep Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's little. You can read it in an evening. You can memorize it. Well,
gosh, I remember learning the Gospels in school. That was before it was politically correct.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone should be reading just the red letters in a red letter Bible.
I like that. I'm going to vote for you to be president. That's all there is.
I don't want the job. My goodness.
Oh, come on. We need honest people in politics.
Oh, I think we do, but the point is the only way to fix all these problems is to go back and do what Jesus asked us to do, because the teachings, as I say, really work.
Yeah.
And I've learned why they work. They work because they help us remember that we are part of God. They help us remember who we are in an amazing way. It's easy. My next book, which is The Fun of Growing Forever, will show how it works.
Do you know what?
It'll be out this summer.
Well, we're going to talk about that when that comes out, because there's one thing that I can't understand, and maybe you can help me. Jesus was a very down-to-earth person. You know, he walked, he talked, he taught, he loved. He didn't go to Vatican City and live within the wealth that the church has amassed. You know, maybe that's why he hasn't come back yet, because he's still ticked off at what they've done to his religion and to his people.
There's evidence that he's here now. I would contend that because we still have the teachings, he never really left. Mm-hmm. But he is working very hard now to help us understand that it's time to follow him directly and to stop following the false prophets. He talks about it in the Gospels, but again,
You have talked to him, right?
I haven't really talked to him. I was, yes, I channeled him.
Right.
But I was very much a typewriter in the process. It was overwhelming.
Right.
Most of Liberating Jesus was actually written by Jesus. The book that came out last fall. It's very hard for me to say that still, because I've been, this very straight-laced, sober lawyer my whole life. I've never had an unusual thing happen, but this happened, and it was very unusual.
But maybe it's not unusual. Maybe it happens to more people than we know, and because of their own negative beliefs, that they don't have the ability to open up and say, well, how can I help you? Like you did.
There's evidence that Jesus has been trying to do this for hundreds of years. And the heavenly hosts were very surprised when I actually published the book. They expected I would chicken out, as apparently other people have done, including Thomas Jefferson, by the way.
I can just see it. Knock, knock. Who's there? Jesus. Jesus who? Oh, let's go to the next person. Knock, knock. Who's there? Jesus. Jesus who? Let's go to the next person. Knock, knock. Who's there? Jesus. Jesus who? Oh, wait a minute. This door says Roberta Grimes. Knock, knock. Who's there? Jesus. Come on in.
I didn't really have a choice. I didn't want to publish it, but the book was vetted by they're called the Unity. They're very advanced beings who assist Jesus and are around Jesus, and they said publish the book. So we did.
What do you think Jesus says about these mega churches?
And I don't think he's happy about any churches.
No.
I don't think he is, because nobody's growing spiritually. Look around you. People are no different. Older Christians are no different than younger Christians, are they? If people followed the teachings, you could get to the sixth level in one shot. You wouldn't need reincarnation. You could get there in one lifetime if you followed the teachings. That's why he came. So we would be able to stop turning on the wheel, as the Buddhists say, over and over again, not knowing even why we're here.
Yeah. You see, the way I look at life is, there are many people who are, going around in that little wheel in the hamster's cage, but the hamster's been dead for years.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Yeah.
People are hungry for this. They're hungry for an answer. And the earth is hungry for us to stop being negative, to stop fighting wars, to stop having hatred and oppression of people. All of that has to end, and the only way to end it is to change our hearts.
The only way to change it is to get rid of the political systems that keep wars and hate going.
Yes, but the root cause is our own, the fact that we choose fear and hatred and negativity over love. We don't even know how to choose love. We don't know how to forgive. Jesus teaches us, though, the right way to do all of these things. And as I say, it really works, and it works quickly.
John Lennon...
You wouldn't have liked me before. You like me now, but you wouldn't have liked me 6-7 years ago.
The hippies had the right idea. Nobody listened to them. John Lennon, all you need is love. And you have all these people who have been screaming at the top of their voices from the top of mountains, all you need is love, you bunch of dumb morons. No. It's simple. Once again, life is simple. We complicate it.
One of the things that's going to happen within the next few years, Thomas Edison, by the way, you talked about him earlier and during a break, is in fact working with a group of very, very advanced beings, some of them famous scientists, and there will be an easy way to communicate electronically within the next few years. That's going to change everything.
Communicate with who?
With the dead. There's an appendix, this new fun of staying in touch coming out. We specifically pulled it so we could put an appendix on about all the progress being made by the communication stations. There are 3 in the world. And already, it's not back in print yet, but already what I said there was out of date. That's how fast it's happening. So we'll have to talk about that too soon, Rob.
Anytime, my dear. The door is always open for you, my friend.
Thank you.
Are we seeing a glimmer of hope that people are getting the message? Like when I watch the news, and maybe that's the biggest problem I have in my life as I watch the news. Yeah, I see the fighting in the Middle East. I see what's going on in France. I see what's going on in England. My God, I see what's going on in Canada and the United States, and it doesn't make me happy.
But it all has the same cause. It's because the earth has too much negativity generated by a 20th century that was full of wars and hatred and oppression of people. And we have got to turn that around, and the only way to do it is by transforming ourselves.
Is the amount of information that we have access to also contributing to this problem? Because in mainstream media, if it don't bleed, it don't lead.
Yes. But again, the root cause is in you. The root cause is that we have not transformed ourselves spiritually. When enough people do that, because we're all part of one mind, it's impossible. If 20% of the world would, even if 20% of Christians would actually follow the teachings of Jesus, it would be impossible for things like ISIS and all the negativity in the Middle East to continue. We would affect all other minds. That's the great secret most people don't understand. We really are powerful individually if we will just do this.
If Roberta Grimes was able to address the world in one shot, what would your first message be to the people in order to change the negativity into a world of positive love?
I think I would just say we now know you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And when you understand that, you will change your life altogether because you'll live on an eternal scale. And you'll begin by understanding that the most important thing is to learn to forgive, to love, and to make one united consciousness, which is perfected. When we do that, we will live in a heaven on earth.
Why then doesn't Jesus just come back and let his presence be known to one and all so that there would be no more denying the word, that people would see that Christ is real? He's just not a think character in a book that many consider to be fictional.
But they didn't believe him the first time.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, think about it. The Christians, I would just ask Christians, if this isn't a new revelation, what would you expect? How does God have to do in order to reach your heart?
All right, stand by, my dear friend. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. X-Zone Nation, Roberta Grimes is our guest. www.robertagrimes.com. We'll both be back on the other side of this break, so don't you dare go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. And welcome back, everyone. Don't forget to listen to my good friend Jeremy Scott in the next hour here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. He's got a great show, great lineup. And then you can follow us as we refeed and repeat this edition of the X-Zone on the Mutual Broadcast Network. Roberta Grimes is my special guest this hour, www.robertagrimes.com. And Roberta, as always, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. When you go out and you meet people and you spread your word about dying and death, what are some of the comments that you get, some of the feedback that you get?
It used to be a lot more of, dying's not fun, or what a strange title, or but there's a lot less ignorance now. Even over the 6 years, I guess, almost, since The Fun of Dying first came out, I've seen a real increase in awareness on the part of just people on the street. Everybody seems to be more aware of the truth. So I'm having a lot more fun with it. People ask intelligent questions and, will share sometimes their own communication stories, which are sometimes really beautiful. Everybody's on a voyage. It's wonderful.
Can you relate one of the stories that you've heard to us tonight?
Someone contacted me, probably 6 months ago, who was devastated. He had lost his wife and his daughter within, I think, 3 months of one another, and he had fallen apart. So I sent him a PDF by email of The Fun of Staying in Touch. I said, I'm sure they're trying to contact you. Let me know what you hear. And I saw this man lived across the country from me, transformed just by being suddenly aware that his wife and his daughter had been doing all kinds of things to get his attention. I mean, he sent me whole lists of things that they were doing, from, the predictable butterflies and coins.
Oh, wow.
Some amazing, verbal communications. It was astonishing. And I feel whenever something like that happens, I feel, now I know why I was born. To help that man get through that horrible situation he was in. He was transformed and continues.
Are angels real?
Yes. Angels are a special class of being who have never been in bodies. I don't know very much about them. I've not studied them much,
right.
But they basically are our helpers. They're God's minions on earth.
I hope they're not yellow.
No, and they don't have only one eye. No.
I'm sorry I couldn't help that one.
They're very loving beings. Each person has at least one guardian angel whose specific purpose is to keep us from dying until the point we've chosen to leave.
I've got 3 angels.
You have?
Yes, Mo, Larry, and Curly.
Oh, no.
Roberta, the time has come, my dear friend, when you and I must say so long. But before we go, what are your final thoughts for the X-Zone Nation? We've got about 40 seconds.
I just want you all to know that you are infinitely loved. Don't fear anything. Learn to love everything, and learn perfect love, because that's what you deserve. A new life is waiting that you cannot believe how wonderful it will be.
If life on the other side is so good, why do we want to come back?
Because we want to grow. Remember, we got to strengthen those spiritual muscles. The higher you go in the afterlife, the more beautiful it is. And people hunger for spiritual growth as they've never hungered for anything.
Roberta, let our listeners know where they can get your books and how they can find out more about you, dear.
Bookstores everywhere, of course, Amazon and Barnes & Noble online. And you can contact me through robertagrimes.com. I do answer emails.
Roberta, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing, and I look forward to the next time you join us back here in the X-Zone to help us get the message across that we are special and that all we need is love.
Thank you, Rob, so much.
Take care, dear friend. That's it for tonight, X-Zone Nation. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. At 6 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. So until tomorrow night, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.